began quietly, with whispers in the corners of rooms. People started asking questions they didn't have the courage to answer themselves. Every person connected to the story was pulled into a web of curiosity and unease. What they found didn't frighten them because of crime or scandal. It frightened them because it revealed a kind of discipline they couldn't imitate. Each witness spoke of the same thing: a stillness that couldn't be provoked, a presence that made lies sound foolish before they were even spoken. That realization was what turned curiosity into fear. The investigation wasn't about wrongdoing. It was about power misunderstood. The kind of power that doesn't advertise itself, yet rearranges the entire room by simply existing. Conversations grew tense as the questions deepened. The interrogators wanted cracks, contradictions, something to discredit. Instead, they found consistency. No one could recall a single emotional outburst, a single unguarded moment. Each person described quiet confidence that made others nervous, as if they were being evaluated without words. The more they tried to define it, the more it eluded them. Authority without arrogance, mystery without effort. Some called it composure, others called it control, but no one could explain how it disarmed everyone it touched. The deeper they looked, the clearer it became that the fear wasn't about the person in question. It was about the reflection they forced everyone else to see. Even the closest acquaintances spoke with caution. There was admiration in their tone, but also something closer to reverence. They described someone who understood timing better than most understand language. Someone who knew when to step back, when to disappear, and when to strike with precision that felt premeditated by fate. The investigators expected stories of manipulation and found mastery instead. True strategy never leaves fingerprints. It moves through life like wind, felt but unseen. When that kind of intelligence walks through the world, it unsettles everyone invested in pretending. Pretenders hate authenticity because it reminds them of how shallow their influence truly is. The rumor spread fast, not because of scandal, but because of curiosity disguised as fear. How could someone rise without noise, win without witnesses, dominate without confrontation? That question became an obsession. Each person questioned added another layer to the legend. They spoke of someone who watched everything, spoke little, and acted only when action would echo. Such control defies modern logic. In an age of constant broadcasting, silence looks unnatural. Yet silence is where clarity breeds. And clarity is what makes ordinary people dangerous. Those who can see through deception don't need to fight it. They simply stop feeding it. That's the kind of strength that keeps even the powerful awake at night. There was one confession that broke the pattern. A former friend admitted something that made the room go cold. They said being near that kind of composure made them feel exposed, as if their inner thoughts were being read aloud. It wasn't intimidation, it was exposure. When calm meets chaos, the latter reveals itself without resistance. The fear wasn't of being judged, but of being understood too easily. That's the paradox of emotional intelligence. The more someone understands the hidden motives of others, the less others can control them. Power shifts silently, from the manipulator to the aware. That's why awareness feels dangerous. It dissolves illusions without violence. As the investigation continued, something remarkable happened. The questioners began turning on one another. The deeper they searched, the more personal the inquiry became. Why did this calmness bother them so much? Why did stillness feel like threat? It became clear that what terrified them wasn't behavior. It was what that behavior exposed about their own fragility. Composure, when genuine, acts like a mirror. It reflects the instability of those who rely on reaction. It exposes how much of power is theater, how much of dominance is insecurity in disguise. When someone doesn't play the game, the entire system starts to collapse under its own absurdity. Reports were written, conclusions drawn, but none satisfied. The story had no scandal, no betrayal, no corruption. Only proof that quiet strength terrifies those who worship chaos. Every society runs on control. Control of attention, control of narrative, control of fear. When a person detaches from all three, they become immune. That immunity looks like danger to those who benefit from confusion. In truth, it's liberation disguised as mystery. The investigators thought they were exposing a secret, but what they found was discipline wrapped in silence. That kind of control cannot be punished. because it cannot be understood through rules built for reaction. Those who watched from afar started to shift their tone. The mockery turned into respect, the skepticism into imitation. Some tried to mimic the calm but failed, because imitation lacks conviction. True composure doesn't come from pretending. It comes from rebuilding the mind after every storm. It's the product of walking through betrayal, humiliation, and chaos without letting them shape identity. Once that level of control is achieved, external approval becomes irrelevant. The world begins to orbit differently. Fear turns into fascination. Enemies turn into observers. What was once questioned becomes studied. The final report read like poetry. It didn't accuse, it didn't clear. It simply concluded that some forms of power cannot be categorized. The language used was strange for a document meant to expose. Phrases like quiet authority, effortless dominance, unspoken influence. It was less an analysis and more a reluctant admission. The people who began the investigation ended it changed. They had stared too long into the stillness of someone who no longer reacts, and that stillness had reflected something back. How fragile human control truly is. In every room, there's always one person who doesn't need to prove anything, and that's the one who holds the quietest kind of power. The dominance that doesn't chase victory comes from understanding that most battles are illusions. Some people fight to be right, to be seen, to be remembered. The truly dangerous ones don't fight at all. They study the rhythm of chaos until it exposes itself. That kind of control doesn't draw blood, it draws truth. Everyone else swings for validation, while the composed one observes with precision. The absence of movement becomes the most strategic move of all. Power that doesn't need to win rewrites what winning means. It becomes less about applause and more about endurance. The moment someone stops competing, control quietly shifts in their favor. There was once a person who walked away from every argument halfway through. Not out of disrespect, but because the energy of the fight no longer fed them. Others called it indifference, but it was mastery. Knowing when to withdraw is a sign of strength that ego can't understand. The world trains people to equate resistance with weakness, but silence often ends conflicts more effectively than noise ever could. The kind of dominance that requires no victory comes from seeing further ahead, understanding that no one really wins in chaos. They just exhaust themselves proving they're not losing. The real winner is the one who knows how to conserve their energy, while others drain theirs. This kind of power unnerves people because it can't be measured. The absence of reaction feels like defiance to those addicted to control. When one person stays still while everyone else panics, the stillness becomes magnetic. It pulls focus. The calm face among chaos disrupts the entire hierarchy of fear. That's when others begin to question who truly holds control. It's never the loudest voice in the room. It's the one who could speak but chooses not to. That's the paradox of dominance without victory. It doesn't need acknowledgement, yet it's impossible to ignore. People can argue with words, but they can't argue with composure. Some victories cost too much to celebrate. Every time a person wins by force, they lose something subtler: credibility, peace, alignment. The calm individual understands this instinctively. They let the impatient claim small victories, knowing that short-term wins often hide long-term weakness. That's not submission. It's chess thinking in a world playing checkers. There's power in allowing others to underestimate silence, because silence turns perception into armor. The calm one waits until the noise eats itself. By the time others realize what happened, dominance has already changed hands. It's not won through aggression, but through timing. The patience that frustrates the impulsive always leads the calculated to triumph. Dominance without victory lives in restraint. The mind that knows when to act and when to vanish wields control no system can replicate. It's not about controlling others, it's about controlling self. When every emotion, impulse, and fear bends to discipline, life becomes predictable in a way that unnerves those still at war with themselves. The undisciplined think dominance comes from intimidation. The disciplined know it comes from invisibility. True control is invisible because it doesn't announce itself. It manifests in how problems dissolve without confrontation, how conflict avoids the composed because there's no entry point for manipulation. When emotion meets restraint, emotion loses. Always. The most dominant people are rarely celebrated. They don't fit the image of conquest. They move quietly, influence subtly, and win by making others believe they never competed. It's a paradox. People fear them, but can't stop admiring them. Their presence shifts the tone of a room, not through authority, but through energy. That's how real command works. It adjusts the environment without raising its voice. It's not about taking credit or proving worth. It's about embodying certainty so deeply that external validation becomes irrelevant. That's the highest level of power. When victory no longer defines identity, there's a strange kind of peace that comes with such control. When the need to prove dissolves, the world feels smaller and simpler. Every insult loses its sting. Every challenge loses its urgency. The one who masters this no longer reacts, they respond. There's precision in every gesture, every word, every pause. That kind of precision confuses others because it feels unnatural in a world fueled by emotional reaction. But it's not unnatural, it's evolved. Dominance that doesn't need victory lives in people who've outgrown the need for noise. They walk differently because they've stopped performing for approval. They act from truth, not from threat. Even in relationships, this kind of strength transforms dynamics. One person's emotional chaos can't survive against another's clarity. The one who stays centered eventually dictates the tone. No shouting, no proving, no control, just calm energy that makes the unstable unravel. That's when power becomes undeniable. It's not manipulation, it's gravity. Every emotional game collapses under the weight of composure. Dominance without victory doesn't seek to destroy others. It exposes imbalance so naturally that others destroy their own masks in its presence. That's why emotional control feels divine. It restores order without conflict. This power grows from pain, not privilege. It's built through experiences that force the mind to sit in discomfort without surrendering. Those who've been humiliated, overlooked, or underestimated enough times eventually stop chasing external recognition. They learn that the most dangerous person is the one who no longer reacts to disrespect. That shift changes everything. Every attempt to provoke begins to sound like background noise. The need to win fades, replaced by a quiet confidence that no one can steal what's already internalized. When inner validation replaces external praise, dominance becomes effortless.